Welcome to week 12 of the Gambling Show. I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude?
Earlier upload this week. We'll see how you guys like that more than the Saturday upload. But let's just get into the week 11 recap. I'll start first. It was a 3-2 week for me. Another week in the red money wise, which was not ideal, but it is what it is. Let's start with the Rams minus 4.5 over the Patriots. I felt that I got a lot of good value on this number. I was buying the Rams low and selling the Patriots high. I mean, they covered. I believe it was like a 5 or 6 point win, but it was actually pretty close. The Patriots had the ball at the end of the game. I believe they were within margin if they got in the end zone to lose me the bet. I think Matt Stafford threw for 4 touchdowns. Drake May had an amazing game. He kind of dueled with Stafford, so it was close, but still a cover. I just think that line was probably too short, took advantage of it. Second one was the Ravens -3. This busted my parlay. I went 2 out of 3 for my parlay picks. Maybe should have thought twice about that. But this was a bizarre game. The Steelers just beat the Ravens outright. I believe it was like 16-18 or something like that. The Steelers won this football game, kicking 6 field goals. They did not get in the end zone one time. That being said, though, they did a really good job on Lamar Jackson. I believe he was under 50% completion percentage. Had like 1 touchdown. The offense looked stymied. And there were 2 Justin Tucker missed field goals. Right, the most accurate kicker in NFL history missed 2 kicks, one outside of 50 and one shorter than 50. He hadn't missed a kick shorter than 50 yards all year, right? So if he hits those 2 kicks, the Ravens do cover and win the football game. I'm not gonna right side you on that. The Ravens could have converted those first downs, right? It's not exclusively Justin Tucker's fault. That being said, though, I think there is a stark difference in the quality of these football teams. I think it's kind of inexplicable what happened on Sunday. Maybe I should have respected the Mike Tomlin dark magic in the Steelers Ravens weird AFC North rivalry a little bit more. But based on the talent of these two teams, what I've seen on the field, and what I've seen season long from these two teams, if you lined this exact game up for me this week, I would pick it every single time. The fact of the matter is, I think there is a stark difference in the quality of these football teams. And when I make picks, I'm gonna make picks based on my evaluation of teams, right? I think trends can help you make bets, but I think a lot of times that's like lazy and you're just kind of like counting on history to repeat itself. It did in this case. It came to bite me. It busted a parlay. It ruined a 5-0 week for Yanni. But listen, the way I gamble is I look at what the teams are and I make the best pick at that time. I'm not going to change the way I view this. I think it was just like a weird spot where the Steelers came out on top. But it is what it is. Take that on the chin. Next one was the Bills -2.5 against the Chiefs. The Bills got it done. They ended the undefeated run of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think a lot of things that I said about the game did actually turn out to be true. I think the Bills looked like the better team on the field. On Sunday, there were 2 Mahomes picks that the Bills took advantage of. The Chiefs did a pretty good job on James Cook. They held him to 20 yards, but there was 2 rushing touchdowns from him. Josh Allen on 4th and 2 broke off the 30-yard touchdown to seal the game. I believe the Bills were up by 2 at that point in time, so I thought, oh my God, like the Bills might win this football game, and I still don't cover. I thought the 2.5 was going to bite me. It didn't, and then they held up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the injuries are coming the injuries are catching up with the Chiefs. Like you can only do this for so long. That's not to say that I don't think the Chiefs are contenders in the postseason. I think that they're still the team to beat until proven otherwise in the postseason. But think I got them in a good spot there. I think I got some good value on the Bills at home. Huge win for them. Next one was the Bengals money line. This one was a strange pick. I think I loved this. I loved this pick coming into Sunday night. I thought that the desperation of the Bengals would play a big factor in here. What I think I probably discounted about this game was how well Justin Herbert is playing in that first half. That was one of the most impressive first halves of football I've seen any quarterback have all year. He was throwing it whenever he wanted to. He was breaking off long 20 to 30-yard runs on this Bengals defense. The Bengals actually did do a good job of stopping J.K. Dobbins and Gus Bus, that combination, in the first half and basically all the way until the end of the game when J.K. Dobbins broke the long run for the touchdown. So I think I got a lot of things right about the game, but the Bengals, like, they had a terrible first half offensively. Then they turned it on this in the second half, but it was too little too late. Again, we had two more missed field goals from Evan McPherson. I'm not going to right side you on that either, though, right? Because the Bengals were so bad in the first half. I will say though, it felt to me like the Bengals probably win that game if McPherson makes those kicks. It is what it is, though. It's just been an awful season for the Bengals. I feel so bad for Joe Burrow. He's playing so well, but props to the Chargers, man. I think that offense is starting to pick it up at the right time of the season here. They'll be dangerous going forward. Then I'm going to save the Texans for Yanni. But yeah, 3-2 week. We are now down to just under 5 units in the green. It is what it is when you have a parlay bust and then a money line pick busts. Sometimes you go in the red for a week. That's fine though. I had a winning week record wise, and my record climbed to 31-24. So we're like at 56% hit rate. But looking to get back on track at least dollar wise and have a 5-0 week coming up.
Yeah, so for me, I took the Dolphins -7 against the Raiders. I felt good about that just because of the talent difference between the teams. You'll see a little bit more of a discussion on that topic coming up, so I'll just leave it at that because it is relevant to this week in a few ways. Ravens -3. Ted hit that pretty well. Nothing to really say there. If you had told me that the Steelers weren't going to get a touchdown in the game and that the Ravens just needed 21 points to cover, I would make that bet every day of the week. It just didn't come home this week, right? Think it's more of a statement about the Steelers defense than anything else. I don't even think it's a statement about the Ravens offense necessarily. But yeah, if you told me they weren't going to get a touchdown in the game and the Ravens needed 21 to cover, I will take that bet every single time. And I think most of the time it does come home. It didn't this week. Kind of a bummer. It cost me my first 5-0 week while doing this though. Steelers Ravens under 48.5. That's just an old betting adage that I broke out here. We like to put the phrase in the slides, we're not slaves to the trends, right? But on that one, it felt too high. 48.5 is like pretty high. There are some games this week that are like shootouts, like the Rams and Eagles were at 48.5. To me, those are the kind of games that maybe profile as that number. I thought that was wild for it to be up there. I happily took the number, and then they hit 34. They wouldn't have covered a 36-point spread in that game. So but I can't really take credit for it. That is just there's a general, like, a joke about this matchup is whenever the Ravens and Steelers play, take the under. And I would say you probably should. Colts +3.5. Awesome for Anthony Richardson to come back, man. The kid, to deal with that level of pressure, and you're dealing with that level of pressure when there's generational wealth like hanging over your head. There's 100 or 200 or 300 million dollars potentially in career earnings if you can work out as a quarterback in the NFL. He got benched. That's brutal, dude. The kid's barely old enough to be like drinking. He's a year or two into his drinking career, his legal drinking career. For him to come back as an underdog against Aaron Rodgers, man, it's a tough team. He had a great game. I'm glad I had faith in him, and I appreciate him for helping me dig out of this hole I'm in. And then the Texans -7.5 against the Cowboys. That game, I don't know how it like became competitive through kind of a series of like weird choices that the Texans made a little bit. The Cowboys had that Audrey field goal that turned into 0 points after they got the penalty on it. It was a little weird. I was actually surprised that the game was as close as it was, and you're seeing kind of the consternation on social media about CJ Stroud's performance because of it. I don't really know. I think, again, though, if you told me whatever, I could make that bet 100 times, I would make it all 100 times. I will take that any day of the week. I think the Cowboys are going to be one of my favorite teams to pick on here for the rest of the season. I'm glad I did this week. So now I'm only in the red 2.2 units, $220, whichever you prefer. Halfway out of my big hole I dug for myself, and I'm 29-26. I did check before this. That is a 52.7% hit rate, which is good. I was hoping to be between 55 and 60%. So hopefully if I have a good week, I'll be more in that range. Ted is well into that range. He's actually doing a little bit better than he thought he was. I think that's more like 56, 57% he's hitting on. Really good. I hope to get up there this week with a good slate.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weeks left, right? We got at least 7 more weeks, I think, or 6 or 7 more weeks. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a lot of time for you to dig yourself out of the hole, and there's a lot of time for me to screw it up, right? So,
Yep.
yeah. All right, let's get into the week 12 picks here, and this is going to be a free Tendies fantasy first for us. This week, me and Yanni have 3 games that we're consensus on. They were consensus on a parlay. That is a first for the channel's history, and we also have one head-to-head matchup too. So for the single games, I'm taking the Bucks -5.5, the Patriots +7.5, and the Chiefs -10.5. Then for the parlay, I'm rolling out the Cardinals -1.5 and the Eagles -2.5. If the parlay hits, that returns $663.07. For the single games, if those 3 hit, it's $568.78. On a 5-0 week, it's a $931.85 total. The ticket cost is $400 because there's the 1 2 leg parlay. And like I said before, just a little bit under 5 units in the green and looking to improve.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm taking the Bucks over the Giants. I'm taking the Dolphins over the Patriots, which is a head-to-head for me and Ted. Taking the Broncos over the Raiders on the road, and like Ted said, we're going to be consensus on the Eagles -2.5 parlay with the Cardinals -1.5 versus the Seahawks. And did I already forget who the Eagles are playing? The Rams versus the Seahawks and the Rams, respectively. Kind of a bummer because for the Niners' sake, I would appreciate it if the Cardinals lost, but we'll see. Parlay 363, like Ted said. Other return 572. Total potential of 935, and I'm staking 4 units on this one. Would love to hit that parlay. That will clear me out of this thing entirely. But we will see. 29 and 26, 2 games behind old Teddy Boy going into the week.
Yeah, really stoked about the team ride on the parlay. And if that hits, like
Yeah,
the channel's doing so good, man.
yeah. Well, do we both, like we always like to tell you guys, like we don't actually sit there and go. Sometimes we'll do the slide. Like today, we sat there and did the slides together, right? But we don't like compare notes and going, "I'm picking this. What do you think of this?" and do all that. We actually both kind of try to do it because that way we both get better, right? It's hard when you're doing them together. And to both of us, those were the 2 best numbers of the week. So we're kind of putting a lot into it, like reputationally and all that sort of stuff. We both felt good enough about them to not only pick them but to parlay them. So
Yeah, other factor is too, right? There's 6 teams on bye this week, and I thought it was a hard board. This was one of the harder weeks for me to come up with 5 personally.
yeah,
But
yeah, me too.
definitely see some value in those too. But let's get into the game breakdowns. I guess I'll start this one out. This is one of our first consensus picks. We're both on the Bucks -5.5. The over/under on this game is 41.5 points. We have 94% of the money on the Bucks against the spread and 79% of bets on the Bucks against the spread. So we have a large consensus and a massive whale lean on this Bucks pick here, and we're riding with it. This is going to be the Tommy Cutlets debut. Danny Dimes, after the loss to the Carolina Panthers, they take something from every single team they beat, and in this case, it was Danny Dimes' career as a starter. Drew Lock has been passed over as the second quarterback on the roster, and they're rolling out Tommy Cutlets. Is it a tank, or is it because they saw something they liked in the kid? We'll find out. He's going to be debuting against the 30th ranked defense in total yards allowed, 30th and 30th against the pass. So at least from a stylistic standpoint, right? The matchup is there. Like, if Tommy Cutlets is not really, really bad at football, this would be a very good matchup for him and Malik Neighbors and Wandale Robinson, the PPR scammer. The real question, though, is right, is he going to be able to take advantage of it? I think me and Yanni are both in the camp that probably not. I think that this Giants move to Tommy Cutlets, even though I love that Italian bastard, it feels like this might be a tank from the old New York Giants looking to get a quarterback in the draft next year. On the Buccaneers side, Mike Evans is trending to return, which is a massive boost to the Buccaneers offense. I would say that Baker's been playing really good football without Godwin and Evans in the lineup. And having like your most consistent offensive weapon for like 10 years now, going on 10 years, that's just only going to help this Buccaneers team. I don't see Baker dropping off like in terms of what his performance is. And now you got a stud like Mike Evans out there. Like I think it's going to be wheels up for the Buccaneers at this point. And I think that with the Falcons sputtering, right, the Bucks probably think they have a shot now to get back into the NFC South division conversation. So I think that they have everything to play for right now, and that we should get a good performance out of them. Um, have the Giants reached a Raiders level of locker room like culture? The vibes are atrocious. Players are complaining to the media, and Dayball feels like he's like a lame duck at this point. I would be shocked if the Giants bring him back. That's not to say that Brian Dayball is not a good coach. I think that I don't know. I still think the jury is out on him. I don't think he's like for sure a bad coach, like a Dennis Allen that's already been fired, right? But the Giants have shown me historically they are not a very patient franchise. They will kind of be quick to fire someone. Will that bite them in the ass? We'll see. But it's really not good. The Giants players are coming to the media. They don't understand why Tommy DeVito is starting instead of Drew Lock. They don't understand why Danny Dimes has been benched, right? Like I feel like a lot of the players in the locker room feel like the Giants making this move, this specific money move to like make sure they're not on the hook for paying Dimes next year. They feel like it's kind of abandoned like uh, their chances of like being competitive this year, right? And like it can't be good when the entire locker room feels like the ownership has given up on you at this point, right? So I don't know. It can't be a good locker room to be in. So even though 5.5 is a pretty big number, unless Tommy DeVito goes out there and looks like the Italian Joe Montana, I think we should be able to cover this number. I don't see the Giants stopping Baker in the passing offense. That's typically where the Giants are weaker to the pass. I think 5.5 is a great number and a great pick here. Anything I didn't touch on?
No, I mean you did a good job. Just a few things to add. I told you guys, it kills me to pick against the Mediterranean people do not have a lot of rooting interest in the NFL, right? They like cigarettes and coffee shops and white hipped women, not so much football. But in this case, dude, you have a team that pretty blatantly is trying to tank at this point and lose football games, going against a team that like Baker Mayfield is a lot of things. You can say whatever you want about him, or whether he's a lead in this or that. He's a gamer. I would say like he's maybe one of the dudes that in the NFL is driven by his competitive disposition more so than the average NFL player. Every NFL player is competitive, but there's something unique about Baker where he puts his body on the line for winning and like seems to really motivate his teammate. Like in a lot of ways, this is a team that won the Super Bowl in the last 5 years. Like they're a there are champions. There are multiple Super Bowl champions in that locker room. There are multiple Super Bowl champions on their head coaching staff. They probably view it like this is their division to go snag if they can close strong here. They fought tooth and nail with the Niners and the Chiefs going into their bye week. I don't know if we put it on. I guess we didn't put it on the slide. I don't see it. But if I recall correctly, right, the Giants are top 5 in yards allowed on the ground, right? Didn't
Yeah,
we?
yeah, they're bottom five in rush
So,
defense.
so they are bottom 5 in rush defense. Dude, you do not want to be playing. Again, Rashad White maybe isn't the most talented player. Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker are animals on the ground. And this mashing Tampa Bay O lineman, they have shown a willingness, if they can, they will run the ball 30 to 40 times in this game. And I think they can and they will this week. So you have a team that's actively trying to lose against a team with a vicious competitive spirit full of Super Bowl champion players, a terrible matchup on their side of the ball. While the Giants do have a slightly good matchup, they are actively playing the worst player in the hopes that they lose here. And you're going to tell me I can get that for less than 6 points? I will take that all day. I'm very confident in the pick.
Yeah, well said. And I will be interested to see if Tommy DeVito's like
Yeah.
Carmen Sandiego agent is on the sidelines. That guy was awesome. Meme legend.
Shady character.
All right. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kick it off, right? You got to come back. So this is a head-to-head this week, folks. I am taking the Dolphins -7.5 not at the Patriots, hosting the Patriots. Ted is taking the Patriots. 66% of the money is on the Dolphins against the spread, 56% of the bets. So about a 10% lean on the public and the money there. Some big money coming in on the Dolphins. I would guess by the end of the week, though, this number will be closer to the Patriots, if I had to guess. This is our 4th head-to-head of the year. I'm up 2-1. And I have a chance to close the gap between us by, basically just like in the NFL when 2 teams play, right? It's worth twice as much if we're going head to head and I have to close a gap here. So I'm looking forward to it. A lot riding on this game between me and old Ted. The Dolphins have been playing better defense. They've kept opposing teams to under 20 points in their 2-game winning streak. And one of those teams was the Rams. I mean, that's like a pretty good football team, man. The Rams offense, at least, is good. Is this a legitimate or a product of bad competition? It's a fair question to ask. I would say that stopping the Rams is a legitimate performance, but, the Raiders, is that really an impressive showing? I don't think so. And I'll let Ted kind of get into the Drake May thing because I also love Drake, but he is making this bet because of his faith in Drake. Yeah, because of his faith in Drake. So then the Tua question: is he all the way back? Over the last 4 weeks, 960 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. That is a damn impressive stat line coming off of probably still playing with some residual effects of that concussion. I really, that is impressive to me. And what we've learned about these Dolphins, contrary to public opinion or common discourse around the team, Tua is actually what makes the team tick. All those amazing skill position players, that vaunted Shanahan scheme, all that stuff, apparently it does not mean a fucking thing unless you have a guy that can get the ball out of his hands on time. And so, like, this offense comes and goes with Tua. I have found a deep and profound newfound respect for Tua that I did not have coming into this year because of how different they've looked with him or without him. But even though that is the case, they have not quite looked what they were last year. Again, they lost a couple interior linemen. They lost Christian Wilkins, although the defenses look good. I would say that this is not a shell of the team last year. That's too much, but it's a step back. It's a clear, a standard deviation worse team than the last year's Dolphins, if you want to be technical about it. And then they've only beaten the Raiders by more than one score all season. Risky business, man. I'm taking them against a divisional opponent when they've only had 1 out of their 10 games go more than 2 scores. I am aware of that, but my read on it last week was this is a team that crushes cans. The question is, are they still a can crusher? The question is, are the Patriots still a can? Those two things are not decided. Those are up in the air, and I think they're a matter of debate. That's probably why me and Ted split on this game, right? Because he sees it differently than I do. That's fine. My feeling is that not the Patriots certainly are not a can, but they are a well below average football team at this point, purely on a talent perspective. I actually think they have the head coach figured out and they have the quarterback figured out. And that's like 60, 70% of winning in the NFL. I think the wins are coming. I just don't think they're there yet. And I just traditionally in the Mike McDaniel era, I really like the Dolphins when I feel like their offense will be able to do what it wants to do in the game. I've just generally bet on the Dolphins. I've bet them quite a few times, sometimes at 13.5, 12.5 over the last year or two. I'm happy to do it again here, and I'll leave the Patriots oriented points for Ted.
I mean, it's less the Patriots where they stand as a football team right now, right, is one of the reasons that I made this pick for sure. Drake May, the difference that he has made to this Patriots football team is night and day. I had no idea this was what he was going to look like immediately. Like you look at guys like Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, all of the first round picks have like kind of stuttered a little bit out of the gate, or in Caleb Williams' case, have also stuttered later in the season, right?
Stutter.
Drake May has just been an immediate difference. Is it because like Jacoby Brissett is like totally cooked and like not a real NFL quarterback at this point in time? Maybe, but I've watched a lot of Patriots football since Drake May's taken over. It's not the worst product in the world to watch. So that is at least one reason, right? I feel like this Patriots offense has upside to actually score points in this contest. Before, like, if Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback in this game, the Patriots might score 10 points, and like that's it, right? Second reason I'm picking this game, I like to imagine at this point Tua is like Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall. Like if this man gets concussed, like if he gets lightly tapped on the helmet and it hits him wrong and he gets concussed, we are straight back to Stu Huntley, and the Dolphins, in my opinion, are back at ground zero. I don't see any way if Tua goes down in this game early or when it's close, the Patriots don't cover. So I have that little hedge too, right? Next is just the Dolphins' offense to me hasn't looked right all year. Like, I mean, they scored 30 plus on the Raiders last week, but at the end of the day, that's the Oakland Raiders, right? Like, this Dolphins offense, even with Tua like starting as the quarterback, had barely been over like 20 points, even with him starting. I think they dropped 20 on the Jaguars week 1, barely won with a field goal, right? They only scored 20 on the Rams defense. I guess 2 weeks ago at this point, Tua had thrown 3 picks against the Bills. So to me, Tua, he wasn't really playing his best football to begin with. Obviously, like it's a huge boost to the offense and the guys around him with him in there, right? But when I see they've only had one multi-touchdown win this season, I see that I get a plus 7.5 point underdog, and there's the divisional familiarity too, right? Like obviously Gerard Mayo is a new coach, so coaching styles, I guess, aside, these teams do see each other a lot. I really love the Christian Gonzalez matchup with Tyreek Hill. He's kind of done a really good job defending him in the two matchups that they played because Christian Gonzalez got injured at the end of last year. Tyreek is only averaging 54.5 yards and like 5 catches a week. Like he's not getting those long Tyreek Hill bombs that we're used to seeing that would win you fantasy weeks. So to me, like it's like okay, if Christian Gonzalez can kind of lock Tyreek Hill up or at least contain him, like it's gonna be like on the other Dolphins guys, in my opinion, to see like that can crushing type of performance. We haven't seen it from Waddle this year. I still think he's a good player, but I don't know what's going on there. Like you could argue that Jonnu Smith could have a big game. It is a revenge game for him coming back to the Patriots, right? I mean, you could argue you like A Chain's spot here, but I don't know, man. There's enough things here where I liked the number, liked the big underdog in this spot. I don't think the Patriots win outright. Like, I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of wiggle room in that 7.5. There's backdoor cover that's open. There's a lot of pass to covering the number, and I don't see a just Dolphins drubbing of the Patriots here. So that's why I was on that side. But I do think that people were pretty quick to write the Dolphins off. I think they are like sneaky still in the wild card hunt. Like they would have to have a lot of things go right for them, but they might be able to make a run here if Tua can stay healthy and starts playing good ball. But we'll see. I really hope this one comes home though, so Yanni can't say he's beating me in the head-to-heads. Last year I won 3-0 against him, but he's had the better read so far. All right, next we got the Chiefs going to Carolina to play my second team, the Panthers, and I am unfortunately picking against them this week. I'm taking the Chiefs minus 10.5. Massive, massive number delay for the Kansas City Chiefs. The over under on this game is 43.5 points. 78% of the money is on the Chiefs against the spread, and 76% of bets are on the Chiefs against the spread. I was pretty surprised to see that level of confidence in the Chiefs in this spot, given the historical, I guess, kind of trend of the Chiefs not covering large numbers against inferior competition. But the betting public's with me this week. So we'll start with the Chiefs' undefeated run being over after the Bills took them down. And the last time they lost a football game, right? They went on to win 15 straight games and a Super Bowl. So I think that this is going to be like, this will be a spot where the locker room kind of gets up for a game to beat the shit out of another team, right? Mahomes is going to have the guys ready to go. I'm sure Kelsey is going to do whatever he needs to do to get his 35-year-old butt ready for this game. I think they'll come out here like on fire. Isaiah Pacheco is trending to return this week, and the Panthers are last in rush defense. So I think that this is the best possible matchup in a for a statement game for him, right? I think this Chiefs team, they still have Patrick Mahomes, right, who's liable to just become Superman at any point in time. But with all the injuries they've sustained to their wide receivers, I think this is turned into like a ball control type of offense. And now you get I don't think that Isaiah Pacheco is a particularly dynamic runner of the football, but I think that he's going to have more to offer, more explosiveness to offer than Kareem Hunt did off the street. That's not to say Kareem Hunt didn't do a good job filling in, but man, this Panthers defense is one to attack in all facets of the game. So the Chiefs, I would say, have kind of struggled on offense this year. I think that's like a no duh type of deal. But like I said, this Panthers defense is really bad. They are last in scoring, and they're averaging 31 points per game allowed to their opponents. So even though like I get this Chiefs team has been they just haven't looked like their old selves that we've seen under Andy Reid. I think they're going to be able to score at will in this one. Like, do we really see the Panthers secondary picking off Mahomes like 2 or 3 times here, right, and keeping the Chiefs down? I don't see it. I think the Chiefs have a very good chance to go over that 30-point total. And if they do, like, are you telling me the Panthers are going to score 20 points on this Chiefs defense? I guess it could happen, right, with a giant number like this, but I certainly don't see it. The reason being, I think this is stylistically a terrible matchup for Carolina. The Chiefs are third third against the rush on defense, and how you beat them is like throwing the ball against man-to-man coverage, right? The Chiefs play a lot of man-to-man. The way you beat them is you have playmakers on the outside, or just like man beaters. Like Khalil Shakir had a great game for the Bills on Sunday, and a lot of that is because he runs nice, crisp routes, right? And can beat his man and man coverage. So because the Panthers have decided, Bryce Young is riding a 2-game winning streak. He's done good. I mean, not good, right? But comparatively, Bryce Young has been better than the product we've seen the majority of his NFL career. But you're asking Bryce Young and his below average wide receiver core that's like headlined by a 50-year-old Adam Thielen. You got Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, like maybe Jatavian Sanders. You're asking those guys to beat man coverage if the Panthers like cannot like get the ground game going. That seems like a very tough ask for me for Bryce Young. It might be different if it was Andy Dalton. If it was Andy Dalton, I probably don't play this game, but I think that just stopping the run is like going to be the death stroke for this Carolina Panthers team. So, like I said, 10.5 is a massive number, and the Chiefs historically don't cover these as large favorites. But I'm throwing out the trend in this one because I think that all things considered, this is really an outlier type of situation. The Chiefs have a great stylistic matchup against the Panthers coming off their first loss of the year. They'll be hungry. I think this is a complete blowout. I think this is one of those ones that like is one of the more embarrassing box scores of the year. 10.5, I think, is a good number. I'm in. What do you think, Yanni?
Yeah, I mean, when we were going over it, dude, I got kind of jealous that I think you picked a good one. I guess I maybe I'm falling for the trend a little bit, right? The 10.5, they don't normally cut. Dude, to me, it's like this weird thing with the Chiefs where they're like the Warriors during their Kevin Durant run, where I feel like they get bored during games. I literally feel like they zone out, dude. It's like they, you know, they're like, what are we doing here? Just get us to the postseason. So the only thing that I could see happening is if they treat this game like a scrimmage. I think I've seen them do that and win games this year. That's the only way it doesn't cover though. I mean, it'll be pretty bad.
What is
Uh
like the best possible outcome you think for like the Panthers' point total in this game? How many points are they going to be able to score against the Steve Spagnuolo defense with Bryce Young, right?
20 is the absolute ceiling. The absolute ceiling. Like I think it's 13 to 16 is like what you're realistically looking at here. Maybe a 10-point showing.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Like, also, I'm kind of excited to get some answers, dude. If Bryce Young goes out, like, has 65% completion, 200 to 230 yards, a touchdown, and a pick or something like that, like, if he just looks like middle of the road here, I actually think that's a great statement game from Bryce, dude, because he's kind of been beaten up on bad teams since he came back. I'm curious to see how he looks again in a real game. This is as real of a football game as it gets, and I just like a good story. It would just be an interesting story to me if the turnaround's real. But I think you're, as far as your bet goes, though, I think you're gonna hammer it. I think you're
I
gonna
think
cover.
it's so funny how we went from like the biggest Bryce Young haters on this program to now we're rooting for the kid.
Wait. Never a hater of him. Never a hater of him. I hated the draft capital they gave up, giving up DJ Moore for him, and I thought he was the third best quarterback in his class. I never once had like an issue. It's not a Bryce issue. He seems like a really good person, actually. Like he's like, seems like a good Christian American dude. Like I have no qualms with Bryce as a person. So but yes, we trashed his ability in football, sure.
One of our
That
most thumbnailed players in the
yeah.
NFL. I think he's made the thumbnail so many times for this channel, whether it's a gnome wheelbarrowing it like an L into the stadium or him with the stock down sign. I think we've been pretty mean to the kid, but now I'm rooting for him. I want to if I lose this bet, I want the Panthers to just outright win this game. Second fan
Destroy.
here, right? Yeah, dude. In like, since the Panthers have taken a piece of like the soul of every team they beat, I would love to see them win and like just do irreparable damage to the Chiefs, whatever that may be. Whether it's taking out a Mahomes knee, like on a freak tackle or something, you do not escape a loss to the Carolina Panthers without having hell to pay. I wonder what it would be if they could pull it off.
Taylor Swift bangs the strength and conditioning coach for the Panthers at halftime. It destroys Kelsey's relationship.
Hey,
Yeah, I don't know.
I heard Bryce Young is single.
Yeah, 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 man. Like that's what they take from him. That's the piece they take is Bryce takes Taylor. Maybe.
All right, next one.
Okay, so I told you guys we're previewing the trends a little bit this week. I have been bashing on the Raiders all year, and it's actually funny. I mean, I grew up in the Bay, right? So I was like half a Raiders fan as a kid. They had that so not Jonathan Gannon, Tim Gannon. Who was the quarterback? Gannon. I don't recall his
Rich
first
Gannon.
name.
Rich Gannon.
I was a kid. I was like in second grade. Rich Gannon, Tim Brown, Jerry Rice. They had like a really cool. The Raiders were actually really cool when I was growing up, and I don't know what happened. But I'm taking the Broncos -6.5 at the Raiders. You're taking a road divisional dog and you're taking them by 6.5. It's never a good feeling, but you guys have to remember that the Raiders play in Vegas, okay? And Denver, Colorado is one of the more economically well-off cities in the country. Do you know how many Denver Bronco fans and a lot of West Coast people that move back and forth between Colorado and California and Las Vegas? Do you know how many fans are going to be there for the Denver Broncos this week? And this looks like the first time the team's really had life, like post Peyton Manning, maybe. I mean, they had a few decent teams in between there, but I mean, really, you have this rookie quarterback that's showing out. It looks like Sean Payton's got a system going in there. They're playing competitive games against the Chiefs. I would guess this game at absolute worst will be like 40-60 Broncos to Raiders fans ratio, if not 50-50. So I really don't consider it a home game. And neither apparently do the whales or the betting public. 91% of every dollar that's been bet on this game so far at that spread at 6.5, it moved to 6.5 today, has been bet on the Broncos, and 78% of the public bets are going on the Broncos at this number. I'm picking a road divisional dog. We do not slave to trends. Gardner Minshew and co. versus the third-ranked scoring defense. Broncos are third in air yards allowed, seventh against the pass, and sixth against the rush. It is a statement, man, to that team. I actually don't know who their OC is. Maybe that's a little disrespectful. Maybe I should go pull that because it was always Dennis Allen, I believe,
Are you
right?
talking about
Sean
the
Payton.
DC of the Broncos? It is Vance Joseph.
Oh, Vance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Look, man, full credit to Vance Joseph. He's been around for years. Actually, I feel a little disrespectful for not knowing that. What a job he's done with, dude. This roster is playing with like 15% less salary cap than the rest of the NFL. They're playing without multiple first and like a third round pick to Russell Wilson. That is like the showing that they have showed this year with an undermanned, underfunded, understaffed team on the field. I know the old saying is always give me the Jimmies and Joes over the X's and O's, right? The players will always matter more than scheme. But to get that much out of those players, scheme still really matters in the NFL, man. It really does. And I don't have faith in Gardner Minshew. Jacoby Myers, I think, is actually one of the most underrated players in football, but man, does he draw a tough matchup this week. And it's looking like at least one of Zamir White and Madison are going to miss this week, if not both of them. So then you have your RB3 on the depth chart going out there and starting. This is a banged up Raiders team. They're emotionally banged up. They're physically banged up. Surtain is going to go ahead and lock up on Myers. Bowers will probably have a day, as he probably will for most of his games in the rest of his NFL career. That guy's a future Hall of Famer. But do they really get it done here where, God, 6.5, again, not great, right? 5.5, a little bit better, protects you in the 2 field goal win. So I guess there is a little bit of a room there, but you are getting the right side of the touchdown hook, which I like. They beat them, I believe, by 22 points the last time they played. I think the Broncos beat them 38-16. And look, is Bo Nix going through a breakout? I don't know. I think Bo Nix is getting a little overhyped in the media. He was like my QB 4 or 5 in the draft class, but I mean, God, man. So over the last month, 1,029 yards, nine passing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown on top of that, 1 interception. Okay, is he a can crusher? Is this for real? He has been beating up on bad teams, but as I said, my hypothesis here is that the Raiders are in fact a bad team. Their numbers were actually not as bad. They were like anywhere from 10 to 15th in most of the defensive rankings this year, which I was pretty surprised to see. They were like a bottom 10 rush passing defense in the beginning of the year. I was surprised to see they're actually doing decent, but my inkling is still to say this is a bad defense. The matchup here, Sean Payton versus Antonio Pierce. Is this the biggest coaching mismatch in the history of the NFL? Certainly the biggest coaching mismatch this week. This is like a chess grandmaster versus a Connect Four enthusiast. Not even a master. Antonio Pierce does not even take the time to become excellent at Connect Four. He just claps and gets very excited when he gets those 4. I feel like Antonio Pierce is a big fan of colorful board games, not the Thinky board games, not Monopoly, not Stratego, not what was the one where you conquer the globe with the real character?
Risk.
Risk, not Risk. He's like fuck Risk. I want Hungry Hungry Hippos. I want Connect Four. I want Uno. He likes Uno a lot because of the colorful cards. And look, dude, this is, but seriously, make no mistake about the difference in intellectual capital and the coaching staff here. I don't care if you want to hire a meathead, fine. Make sure he's got Ben Johnson as his coordinator. If you want to hire a meathead, that's fine. Make sure they have Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore calling plays for him. No problem with a meathead coach. That has a place in the NFL. But you know, to hire him with whatever it was, it Luke Getzey was their OC they just fired, I believe.
Yep.
Dude, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? It's a mess. It's a fucking mess. So look, 6.5. I'm on the right side of the hook. I just need a TD to win. Dude, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a massacre this week. I think we're at that point where the Broncos have firmly ascended into a well above average football team at this point. They're playing so far above their talent. God damn, man. When they get some of this salary cap back and they can actually start using these picks, they're really going to get this thing going. I think they're already getting it going. And I think the Raiders are much closer to tearing it down to the absolute bare ground than they are to winning a few more football games this year. They're on first overall pick watch. They're begging teams to put them out of their misery. They don't even know if they can play their quarterback for an entire game. Multiple games this year, they've gone in with two quarterbacks at the end of the day, having a stat line because they're pulling quarterbacks one drive and putting them in the next drive. It's just an absolute mess. Nothing personal against the Raiders. It is all business in this one, but give me the Broncos minus 6.5.
Yeah, so I mean, if you put a gun to my head and you said you have to pick a side here, I think I might take the Raiders actually. And it's not to say that the Broncos are not. I think the Broncos will win this game, right? I'm not saying the Raiders are going to win this game, but I think the overall talent on these two rosters, I actually don't think there's that big of a delta there, right? I think Brock Bowers is probably the best offensive player that's going to be on the field. So to me, the big value in this game and the reason why the Broncos will probably win this game is the huge coaching mismatch, right? Like, I think that Sean Payton has done a fantastic job this year. The Bo Nix breakout, I'm still not even there on Bo Nix, the player, but I think that is a testament to what Sean Payton has been able to scheme and what he's been able to build with a quarterback that's able to do the things that he wants to do, right? Like the difference between Bo Nix running the Broncos offense and Russell Wilson running the Broncos offense has been stark, you know. So I do think that the Broncos win this game. I Here's the thing though, in if I don't love the team's talent over another team, right? I don't think the Broncos are significantly more talented than the Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders, I guess. That 6.5 points, I look at the home divisional dog and I'm like, ah, like that's a hard number for me to get there on. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think that if Antonio Pierce is dead set on pulling Gardner Minshew, right, and he really wants to see what Desmond Ritter has, the Broncos have a very good chance of covering this number. I think that if Gardner Minshew kind of hangs in there, though, I think he'll be able to feed Brock Bowers enough, but we'll, we'll see. It was a complete stay away for me, but I hope you get it. I have no love for the Raiders. I think Gardner Minshew, I like him. I like the story of the guy, right? I like the story of Brock Bowers, but as an organization, I'm not a huge fan of him. We'll just say that. All right, next we got the Cardinals going into Seattle to play the Seahawks, and we're taking the Cardinals minus 1.5. The over/under on this game is 47.5. Only 45% of the money is on the Cardinals against the spread, and 51% of bets are on the Cardinals against the spread. So this is going to be our second consensus of the week, and we're slightly fading the public in this spot. I was actually really shocked to see the dollar and bet breakdown here, and we are free Tendies fantasy consensusing on a road divisional favorite. We are picking against a home divisional dog. We are not a slave to the trends. We will throw that trend to the side when we think that we have value on a number, and I think we have value on a number here. So I think the first thing to really start with, right, is this Cardinals team. I think they're shaping up like a good football team. Like if you look at their performance this year, it's been kind of sneaky, but they've only lost games to the Bills, who are first in their division. They've almost locked it up, 8-2, right? Just beat the Chiefs. The Lions, they're a 9-1 football team, almost certainly the number one seed in the NFC, potentially the best team in the NFL. The Redskins, they're a 7-3 football team. They've kind of faltered a little bit in the past couple weeks, but it was kind of the start of their breakout is when they beat the crap out of the Cardinals. And then the Green Bay Packers, who I think the media is probably a little bit higher on them than I am, but there's definitely things to like about that football team, right? So I would say I don't know how in on this Yanni is, but I am fully in on the Seahawks squad not being a good football team. So I think that the Cardinals just are way better than the Seahawks at this point in time. So James Conner and the Cardinals offensive line is going to go up against the 27th ranked Seahawks rush defense. So I mean, do you buy the Seahawks success last week stopping the 49ers on the ground? I personally don't. I think they caught the Niners in a really weird spot when they're playing some of their worst football of the year, and you have Christian McCaffrey on two bad Achilles tendons, right? So I think that James Conner and the Cardinals, really, who have had a lot more success than I probably had chalked them up, is having preseason. I think they're going to steamroll this subpar unit. Like James Conner's that dude who just like runs in between the tackles, will drag a couple guys, get 6 or 7 yards a touch. I really like his chances here. Geno Smith has had 11 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on the year. I'm going to just flat out say he's not a good quarterback. I know that there are a lot of Seahawks truthers out there in the ether that think that Geno Smith is like a good quarterback, not a bridge quarterback. I keep seeing Seahawks fans post the standings of like passing yards on the season. I think Geno is fourth in the league in passing yards. They're not taking into account the extra like 80 pass attempts he's had other compared to the other guys that are on that list, but I don't think he's a very good quarterback, and I have a hard time believing that he's going to be able to keep up with this Cardinals offense, right? When you look at the Seahawks team, they have a really terrible offensive line, and they have a hard time opening holes for Ken Walker on the ground. Ken Walker is probably their most talented player, maybe, on the offense. So if your offensive line isn't having success, right? And you're not opening holes for Ken Walker, and he doesn't hit like the long touchdown run that he's liable to hit. Like I think it comes down to Geno Smith and the passing offense being able to keep up with the Cardinals here. And I just don't think Geno's that type of dude. I get that he had a lot of fun last week beating the 49ers for the first time in 3 years. He was having fun on Twitter, dunking on us, but I don't I wouldn't count on him to be able to keep up with the Cardinals here, put the team on his back. I also think that probably the Seahawks' 12th man home field advantage is dead. They're 2-4 in their own building this year, and they've had to use silent counts at points in the season because the opposing team's fans are too loud. The Bills went in there and just took over. I don't know what they used to be called Lumen Field. I don't know what you bums call that stadium anymore. But just because you have a good architect and you make a lot of noise, that does not mean you're a good fan base. I would say you're a fair weather fan base. You guys are not the 12th man that you think you are. I hope the Cardinals fans go show up and dominate the arena. I hope some of the Bayhams show up there, have a rowdy tailgate and take over the Seahawks building. But we'll finish on this. The forecast shows a 60% chance of rain for this game, so it should be harder to throw the football, I think. And if that's the case, right, and we just talked about the difference in the rushing offenses and rushing defenses of these two teams, who do you have more faith in being able to sustain a consistent running game where that's the center of your offense for a week? Ken Walker and his offensive line that just continues to lose and lose and lose matchup. They just had their starting center retire last week out of nowhere. Or James Conner and the tough Cardinals. I like the Cardinals in this spot. Super short number too, right? The only way we do not cover this bet is if the Cardinals win by exactly 1 point. Kind of hard to land on that with the way the counting is in football. I guess we could be eating crow if the Cardinals lose or win by exactly one, but I think this should be well within margin here. Anything I missed, Yanni?
Nothing you missed, just a couple quick things. You brought up a really interesting point when we were talking about when we initially did this game yesterday. It was minus 1.5 for the Hawks, so the spread has actually swung 3 points since yesterday when we did our slides, or well, I guess Monday night when we did our slides, whenever we recorded that, a day or two ago. And I said, well, I wonder if because it's raining. And my thinking was, well, they're an indoor team from the desert. And if they go in the rain and go and play in that Pacific Northwest weather, which I have been having a lovely time of here in Humboldt, California, it has been obscene, dude. Obscene 40-mile-an-hour winds. Like my sliding glass doors have been shaking. If that storm is making its way up north, if that weather front is pushing its way up, I cannot imagine what the weather's going to be like. But so you said, well, dude, doesn't that kind of favor the Cardinals more? And I didn't really think about it. I was kind of thinking about it in a two surface level of a thinking, right? Well, yeah, it certainly benefits the Cardinals. Dude, the Cardinals rushing offense is just gross. And I mean in that in the best way possible. They mash people to pieces, right? They want to be a physical, brutal football team. That is what they like doing at their heart. I really actually love watching the Cardinals play football. Um, the Seahawks want to play like I used to play playing Madden. They want to sit there, hit their X and hit their Y button and watch the big deep routes go right and try to get their plays. And they do that. That's how they play. Um, and yeah, so my feeling is if there's inclement weather and if it's heavy weather, I think that really does favor the Cardinals. Um, I just don't know. Do the Seahawks have it in them to do 35 rushes and ask DK and JSN to block downfield 35, 40 times in that game? I just don't think they have it. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with this bet. And really, in general, dude, in any game between these two teams, Kyler versus Geno is worth 2 or 3 points for the Cardinals, in my opinion. Just that right there, with no added factors. Kyler versus Geno is worth 2 or 3 points. So
Yeah,
very comfortable with that.
and I guess one more thing I want to touch on, right? Like I can't believe I didn't think of this, but like I think this is the perfect like sell high for the Seahawks. I think that after that win against the 49ers, like that, that the Seahawks knew they were dead if they didn't win that game, right? They just beat the 49ers who they hadn't beaten 3 years. Like that has got to be like the most emotional
Yeah,
high for them, right? Like this is the classic letdown spot against, I'll just flat out say it, the Cardinals are playing better the football than the 49ers right now. It's just a fact. They have been playing better the majority of the year. I think
yeah,
this Cardinals team is going to take a stranglehold here. We'll see what happens. I really hope the Niners can kind of keep up and beat the Packers this week. But if the Cardinals win this one in the Niners lose, I think it's almost over. You could pencil in the Cardinals for the playoff team this year,
yeah, I think so. I think so.
and I'll let you take
Okay.
this one.
Yeah, you just did that one. I'll go on this one. Eagles -2.5 against the Rams. Again, man, there's a reason that these two games are in me and Ted's parlay, and there's a reason that these were the first two games that we both keyed in on. I love this number, -2.5. You're getting the right side of the field goal hook. 81% of every dollar bet on the game has been on the Eagles, and 67% of the bets have been on the Eagles. Nice little 14% lean from the big money in here, the whales. And we're going consensus on it. We have a really good record consensus this year. We've never done a consensus parlay. It's kind of nerve wracking a little bit because you're putting a lot onto a game, but I really do feel very good about both of these games. So I'm happy to do it. Me and Ted get to sweat them out together. Jalen, Saquon, and Co. have won 6 straight over that period, and they're averaging 28 points per game, plus the top rushing attack in the NFL. Man, it makes me so happy. One of my theories that's been going on in the NFL over the last 10 years is linebackers and safeties and even the D line really thinned out for this sideline to sideline coverage based game that we had developed in that time. If you guys remember, like in the Kaepernick RG3 era, the Russell Wilson prime, like you had a lot, your players needed to go left and right, left and right. It was not so much a game of north and south, of taking on blocks head to head, right? Think about kind of what the archetype of the modern NFL linebacker is. But it's really interesting, dude, because there's balance, right? There's balance in something like this. And I think what's happened is all of a sudden, these teams that are willing to be mashing, aggressive, run the ball football teams all of a sudden have this edge that they had lost in that era of football. And dude, that's not something that like resolves itself quickly. It takes 4 or 5 years for the pendulum to swing the other way, where you're going to start seeing thick boys at middle linebacker again. Vontez Burfict. There's no Vontez Burficts running around in the NFL right now, 265-pound orcs of a human being, right? And dude, these teams that are playing like this, the Eagles just to me look like they are brutalizing teams when they're out there in the game. Their rushing attack with Saquon, dude, the guys did not want to hit him last week. And how do I know I was playing against Saquon in 2 or 3 leagues? How does Ted know he has Saquon on his team? He just yeah. So look, man, this is a brutal football team. They want to brutalize you. Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni, this is the good part of the meathead thing, right? They're willing to sit there and run up the score. And I think that gets in teams' heads. Like when you're taking that beating and you realize you don't want it anymore, and then they're not going to stop. To me, it really, it looks like they're bullying other professional athletes and football teams when they're out there, right? So to only get 2.5 against a team in the Rams that have looked pretty inconsistent at different points this year, I was happy to take it. Their defense has also been sneaky good. They're first in yards allowed in the NFL, right? The Ravens defense has puttered a little bit. The Steelers look pretty good, but the Eagles are right up there, man. They're right. The Chiefs, they are right up there in the top 4 or 5 units in football. They have the highest paid defensive coordinator, I believe, certainly in the league, but I believe in the history of the NFL. And Vic Fangio, who's a legend. And they're playing like it. They are playing like it. And then, paths to victory in this one. I see the Rams with one singular path to victory, and that is Matt Stafford throws 40, 50 times. Puka and Cup do what they do. Kyron Williams out of the backfield has a big game. I do not see Kyron being able to grind the ball on the ground. One path. They air the ball out and they have an all-time showing, a 400-yard performance from Stafford, 130 yards each for Koopa and God, Puka and Cooper. It is totally possible they have it in them, but dude, the Eagles can beat them in a myriad of ways. They can stuff them on defense, they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith in fantasy before this game last week, Devonta Smith was second in the NFL in half PPR games over 15 points this year. He's their wide receiver too. He's an afterthought on that team. They've been playing without AJ Brown all year. They've been playing without Goddard at multiple points this year. AJ Brown's like one of the 3 highest rated players by PFF grade. He's actually been playing incredible. They just haven't needed him. I think in this game you could do, I don't know how it's going to happen. I do think an offensive shellacking is heading for the Rams. Whether or not they keep it competitive is up to them. But certainly, I feel good about them being able to cover a less than a field goal spread. Yeah, that's all I've got. For me, there's a big difference between the quality of these teams and rosters. The only difference, the only advantage the Rams have is probably McVay is a better coach. I don't know if I would say their coaching staff's even better with how good those coordinators are. McVay does matter. He's a great force multiplier for their franchise, but that's not going to cut it here, folks. That is not going to cut it at 2.5 points. Give me the Eagles all day.
Yeah, I think that if you look at like the skill positions, right? If you look at like the sexy positions in the NFL, the guys who are going to get talked about on TV, like I think it's actually a pretty even matchup, right? Like
Yeah.
Stafford, Cup, Puka, and Kyron are all like, highly valued guys. Like, they get the spotlight, but the Eagles also have Saquon, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith. Like, I think it's even to kind of close, maybe favoring the Eagles on that side. But like the rest of the roster, I think the Eagles probably. I think it's up for debate. They might have the best roster in the NFC. I might like their roster better than the Lions at this point with Saquon Barkley being added to the team. So with the Rams, I don't dislike the Rams. I don't think the Rams are a bad football team, but I think they're just too young on defense at this point. They paid everyone in the, when during their Super Bowl run. They were like, screw the rest of the years. The salary cap's a myth. Like we're just gonna make our run. They did. Stafford got a Super Bowl. The Rams got a Super Bowl, but like I still don't think they've built their roster up to that point yet. I think they've kind of been buoyed by Matt Stafford being an all-time quarterback, right? Cooper Kupp in his amazing run during the Super Bowl and the season after, he was like one of the most efficient receivers all time, right? And then you have Puka who comes in and turns out he has the best rookie wide receiver season of all time. So I think they've kind of sustained success because of those things and their offensive pieces. But when you play a complete team like this, like the Eagles that are playing just really good football right now. I think they might have the biggest winning streak in the NFL. They've won 6 straight. Ever since Nick Sirianni shaved his head, it's been a different vibe in that Eagles locker room. So 2.5 to me, it was too good not to play. Stoked to be riding on the parlay with you. Hopefully it comes home. That's going to do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, please like, subscribe, hit the bell. It really helps the channel out. Question of the day. Who do you think makes it to the Super Bowl out of the NFC? My pick is probably the Lions, but I think the Eagles have a really good shot at being able to knock them out. And we will catch you next week for the mystery episode.